Shaq and LeBron James are about to have the biggest clash the NBA has ever seen. And it all started because Shaq made a statement about his son, Bronny James. He openly told LeBron that the kid wasn't ready for the NBA. But what happened next turned into a full-blown war nobody saw coming. Shaq ended up revealing the real secret behind Bronny getting drafted. Once you hear the full story, you'll understand why this could become the most shocking NBA fallout we've seen in years. See, on the same night that LeBron James signed a massive contract extension with the Lakers, his son, who wasn't even one of the top players in the G League, got handed a fully guaranteed NBA deal as the 55th pick in the draft. And that's exactly where this whole madness started. The 55th pick in the NBA draft is not really a major milestone. It is a pick that exists on paper, sure, but historically, the 55th pick is where NBA dreams go to die quietly. Nobody throws a party for the 55th pick. In fact, out of the last 5 players picked 55th before Bronny James, only one managed to get even a partially guaranteed deal. And that was after spending a full year proving himself in the G League first. Kyle Guy got a 2-way. Jay Scrubb got a 2-way. Aaron Wiggins got a 2-way. Isaiah Wong got a 2-way. That's the actual history of pick 55. Well, unless you are LeBron James' son, of course. Because even with his average performance, Bronny was somehow able to secure a 4-year deal worth $7.9 million. Fully guaranteed in the first 2 years, with a significant partial guarantee in year 3. Imagine going through all that for a second-round pick who was just coming off a college season where he averaged 4.8 points, 2.8 rebounds, and 2.1 assists per game at USC, playing in just 25 games and shooting under 20% from three-point range. Under 20% from 3. Most casual players shoot better from deep in a pickup game, yet he walked right into a guaranteed NBA contract. Here's where it gets actually crazy, and you need to pay attention to this part because the contract wasn't even the wildest thing that happened during the 2024 NBA draft. While Bronny was still sitting on the board in the second round, former GM of the Golden State Warriors Bob Myers went live on air and exposed how Rich Paul, LeBron's agent, was actively calling other teams during the draft and telling them not to take Bronny James. His exact words were, "Don't take Bronny James. If you take him, he's going to Australia." Rich Paul was literally threatening teams not to draft Bronny James, saying if they selected him, he'd leave the country to play in Australia. So, let's be clear about what actually went down on draft night. This wasn't the Lakers seeing a diamond in the rough. This was a completely engineered outcome because the Lakers were always the destination. LeBron got exactly what he wanted. Father and son on the same team. I mean, yeah, it's a historic story on the surface, but also one of the worst basketball decisions the league has seen in a long while. Shaq watched all of this happen. Shaq, who won 3 consecutive championships in that building and gave everything he had to that franchise, had something to say about it. Before the season even started, he went on record saying Bronny belonged in the G League and wasn't ready for the NBA level. And as the seasons have played out, that assessment just keeps getting more and more validated. Look at what Bronny actually did in his rookie year. He averaged 2.3 points per game while shooting 31.3% from the field and 28.1% from the three-point line in 27 NBA games. In this current 2025-26 season, his shooting sits right around 35% from the field. Those aren't the numbers of an NBA caliber player who's developing. Those are the numbers of a player who is genuinely, measurably, and statistically not ready for the NBA. The real tragedy is the players who paid the price for this family project. Look at Jordan Goodwin, a guy who signed with the Lakers, got waived, clawed his way back on a 2-way deal, defended at a high level, and then got waived again. While Bronny kept his guaranteed roster spot, Goodwin had to go to the Phoenix Suns, where he immediately carved out meaningful minutes doing the exact things the Lakers desperately needed: defending and staying active. So basically, the Lakers cut a player who could actually help them and kept one who couldn't, all because one of them had the right last name. That's the part Shaq couldn't live with. This isn't just about a second-round pick being bad at basketball. Plenty of late second-round picks don't pan out. The problem is that a player with a fully guaranteed contract, a protected roster spot, and zero leverage to be cut is sitting in the same organization that once held the highest standard in the entire sport. When Shaq was asked what he thought in an interview, his exact words were, "I've seen 7-footers in the G League eating noodles for dinner who can play circles around this kid. It's a tragedy for the game." And if we're being honest, that's a completely valid point. In Shaq's era, you had to be exceptional to wear that purple and gold jersey. Kobe Bryant was exceptional. Shaq was exceptional. That was the deal. The man helped build the modern Lakers standard, so he has every right to speak up when he feels it's being disrespected. Now, the 15th roster spot, the spot that a player like Quinn Cook would have killed for, that Isaiah Thomas would have shown up to training camp at 4 a.m. to fight for, was just reserved because daddy plays on the team. And look, even though the coaching staff went in front of the cameras and claimed that nothing was given to Bronny and that he earned everything, you have to look at the reality. We can all respect a coach for trying to protect his player, but the numbers don't lie. You can say whatever you want in a press conference, but everyone knows the truth. Shaq isn't just complaining for the sake of it. Shaq is looking at a franchise he helped build being used as a personal family experiment. The roster spot is only the beginning. The real reason Shaq is this fired up goes way deeper than Bronny's statistics. It connects directly to comments LeBron made about NBA legends. Once you hear what he said, you'll understand why Shaq's anger is entirely justified. Shaq was already heated about the roster spot, but then LeBron went on his podcast trying to defend Bronny's poor numbers. However, instead of just backing his son, he essentially poured gasoline on the whole situation. It wasn't enough to hand his son a guaranteed contract on the most historic franchise in basketball. LeBron also had to go on record and claim that playing in today's NBA is harder than playing in the 80s and 90s because the game is different. He wanted fans to believe that playing 82 games back then wasn't nearly as tough as playing 82 games in the 2020s. How do you have LeBron James out here telling the media that this era is the hardest it's ever been, while his own son, who literally has the statistical profile of a benchwarmer at a mid-major school, is walking into a guaranteed roster spot on the biggest franchise in basketball history? It's peak irony. You can't claim the league is more skilled and difficult than ever while simultaneously turning the Lakers' 15th roster spot into a charity project for your family. Shaq hit back hard on a broadcast of Inside the NBA. He basically told LeBron that if he thinks the game is harder now, he should try placing Bronny in an era where the defensive 3-second rule didn't even exist. That meant a 300-pound prime Shaquille O'Neal could just sit under the rim and wait to swallow your entire existence the moment you stepped into the paint. To quote Shaq directly, "If you think this era is harder than what the NBA was in the 80s and 90s, you're admitting you don't respect the game as much as you say. And if you're letting your son enter a league without deserving it, you're proving it." Shaq called it exactly what it is. LeBron isn't treating the Lakers like a championship organization anymore. He's treating them like a PR firm for the James family brand. Let's actually talk about skill for a second, since apparently that's a conversation we need to have. Larry Bird was the first player in NBA history to shoot 50% from the field, 40% from three, and 90% from the free throw line in the same season, and he did it twice in an era with physical defense. And about that pace argument LeBron tried to make, former players who played across both eras have pointed out that the 2020s rank significantly lower historically in terms of actual pace compared to the running 80s. Byron Scott backed this up completely, noting that 12 to 15 teams were averaging well over 100 points a game in the 80s. And back then, it was literally no blood, no foul. You got knocked down, you got back up, shot your free throws, and kept playing. There was no defensive 3-second rule and no wraparound foul calls protecting ball handlers. Shaq himself operated in a paint that was basically a combat zone every single night and still averaged over 26 points a game for a decade. Think about the standard Shaq and Kobe set in that building. For them, every single practice was a war. If you weren't exceptional, Shaq was going to make life hell for you until you quit, and Kobe was going to outwork you until you were useless to the team. Now, you have a kid on the roster who is still struggling to crack 35% from the field. In Shaq's era, those numbers wouldn't just get you cut. They'd get you laughed out of the facility. And somehow, this kid is taking up a spot that could have gone to a hungry G League player who's actually ready to contribute. That's what Shaq cannot get past. It gets worse, because at this point, you might be thinking this is just Shaq being petty. You might think Shaq and LeBron have history, Shaq has an agenda, and this is completely personal. Except here's the problem with that theory. It wasn't just Shaq. Not even close. The entire league media and veteran community have been talking about this. Let's look at Stephen A. Smith, because this situation escalated in a way nobody saw coming. Stephen A. had been going in on Bronny's numbers on First Take, talking about how he wasn't ready and how the whole situation was fundamentally unfair to other players in the league. He was pointing out the near-zero averages in points, assists, and rebounds. That's standard sports journalism, right? Well, during a timeout of a Lakers-Knicks game at Crypto.com Arena, LeBron walked right up to Stephen A. courtside and confronted him in front of all the cameras. Stephen A., to his credit, didn't fold. He later went on a podcast and said he thought the whole confrontation was total nonsense because his actual point, the one LeBron was so angry about, was never that Bronny should never be in the league, but that Bronny simply wasn't ready for the NBA at that moment. That was the opinion LeBron was willing to cause a public scene over. And here's the part that makes it even shadier. Before LeBron ever approached him courtside, Clutch Sports, LeBron's own agency, had already reached out to Stephen A. privately about his Bronny comments to try and intimidate him into staying quiet. First, they tried the quiet route behind the scenes, and when that didn't work, LeBron handled it himself on the court in front of the world. That tells you everything you need to know about how things are being run. Was it just Shaq and Stephen A. Smith? Nope. Charles Barkley had been saying the exact same thing since before the 2024 season even started. Before Bronny played a single regular season game, Barkley sat at the inside the NBA desk and said flat out that Bronny wasn't ready. He added a line that really stung. "I really like everything LeBron has done, but this is a bad look for him." Even other former players like Charlie Villanueva openly stated there's simply no way Bronny should be in the NBA at this stage, pointing out the absurdity of getting a 4-year guaranteed contract while averaging single digits in college. Former NFL players like Channing Crowder called Bronny's performances unimpressive, noting he was getting cooked defensively, which was supposed to be his strongest attribute. All of these analysts and former athletes didn't get into a group chat and decide to pile on. They just watched the same games, looked at the same numbers, and arrived at the exact same conclusion independently. But the most telling part about all of it is that LeBron's response to all the criticism was to either confront journalists or go on media shows and claim that people were making it personal, saying it was his job to protect his household. Which is interesting because when you're the one who engineered your son's draft situation, negotiated his contract, and set up his playing schedule, the personal and the professional become the exact same thing. You made it personal, LeBron. Nobody else did. It's wild that people are still trying to act like Shaq is just being a grumpy old-timer for calling this out. Once you look at the actual math behind this, you realize he isn't just mad. He's genuinely insulted as a basketball icon. We are talking about a guy who walked into this league and immediately changed the entire atmosphere of professional basketball. Shaq's rookie year was a literal horror movie for the rest of the NBA. He averaged 23.4 points, 13.9 rebounds, and 3.5 blocks per game. He was an unstoppable force of nature. Now, compare that to Bronny James, who is currently fighting just to crack 5 points on any given night. It's not even the same sport. If Bronny plays for 15 years at his current statistical trajectory, he would literally need to play 40 seasons just to catch up to the total rebounds Shaq grabbed before he even turned 30 years old. That is the massive gap in standard we're talking about here. True NBA fans know the league isn't new to finding late-round diamonds. Think about guys like Patty Mills or Aaron Wiggins. Those were 55th picks who actually put in the work, developed in the trenches, and became real NBA assets. Instead, the Lakers took that potential roster spot and lit it on fire to run a multi-million-dollar family experiment. Shaq spent 15 years straight never averaging less than 17 points and 9 rebounds. He did that while banging bodies with actual monsters like Arvydas Sabonis, Patrick Ewing, and David Robinson, literal giants who would have swallowed a standard 6 feet 2 inches guard frame hole. Want to know what's crazy? Even LeBron couldn't hold the facade together forever. During a high-stakes matchup, their perfect father-son image finally cracked on the court. Bronny made such a massive, low-IQ defensive lapse that LeBron didn't just give him a quiet teaching moment. He actually started yelling at him in front of the entire arena and the national television audience. The fans aren't buying it either. Ratings reports show that Laker viewership numbers have taken a noticeable hit. People are tired of seeing the most popular franchise in basketball history turned into a personal plaything for one family. Shaq isn't hating. He's mourning the soul of a franchise that used to value winning over everything else. If you thought the guaranteed contract was a slap in the face, The actual day-to-day logistics of Bronny's arrangement will make your head spin. Reports have come out stating that according to the operational agreement, Bronny is only playing home games for the South Bay Lakers in the G League. We have officially reached the era of the work-from-home NBA internship. Imagine being a standard grinded-out player in the G League right now, eating fast food and sleeping on commercial flights night after night just to hope for a 10-day contract. Meanwhile, you look over and see a teammate essentially opting out of road trips because he is too high and mighty to grind and put in the work like everyone else. Shaq absolutely lost it when he heard this, asking when the NBA became a part-time gig. It's a total diva move that completely destroys any semblance of respect in a professional locker room. The fallout this is causing with the actual pros on the roster is massive. Internal reports indicate that established players on the team are privately complaining to management. Just think about it from a coaching perspective. How are you supposed to look a veteran in the eye and talk about accountability, sacrifice, or film study when the rookie on the end of the bench can literally choose which games he wants to travel for? It makes the coaching staff look entirely powerless. Analysts like Michael Wilbon have pointed out that the way the mainstream media covered the whole thing was a massive disservice to the game that the legends built with sweat and blood. We are out here tracking a player who can't even crack a legitimate rotation, while actual elite hoopers are getting ignored. Charles Barkley was even more blunt, expressing incredible disappointment at how the Lakers handled this, stating clearly that you don't get better sitting on a bench or skipping road trips, and that he should have stayed in college to actually develop his skills. The Lakers standard hasn't just dropped, it has been completely erased. Older fans who lived through the Shaq and Kobe three-peat era look at this and realize the most iconic franchise in history just traded its entire competitive soul for Instagram impressions, media metrics, and a reality TV storyline. Imagine just for a second walking into a 2003 Lakers practice and telling Kobe Bryant that the rookie in the 15th roster spot gets to opt out of away games. See how impossible that sounds? Kobe didn't care about your last name, your agent, or your high school highlight reel. He cared about whether you were willing to bleed for the purple and gold. In the Shaq and Kobe era, the internal tension was so high that those two almost came to blows multiple times just to keep the team standard from slipping even an inch. Now, we have a player who is statistically not ready for the league being forced down the public's throat. If you aren't willing to make the sacrifices necessary for greatness, you're just taking up space. That was the unspoken, unbreakable rule of the 2000s Lakers. Compare that mentality, where every single minute and every single dollar was earned through sheer obsession, to this era where a superstar player can dictate draft picks and roster construction for family members. And yet, this is the same era claimed to be tougher than the one that featured Wilt Chamberlain, Magic Johnson, and Hakeem Olajuwon. The drama finally hit its absolute peak during a broadcast where Shaq gave a definitive ultimatum. He looked straight into the camera and dropped a line that sent shockwaves through the Lakers front office. If this kid is the future of the Lakers, then the Lakers have no future. No fluff, no PR spin, just the cold, hard truth from the man who put 3 championship trophies in that building. When you prioritize a family project over professional excellence, you aren't a championship organization anymore. You're a reality TV show. At the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, is Shaq actually hating on the James family? Or is he just the only person with the platform and the courage to tell the absolute truth while everyone else is walking on eggshells? The numbers, the history, and the eye test don't lie, and right now, the numbers are definitely not on LeBron's side.